Alright guys, this is the third attempt at making this video as quick as possible, so let's get started. What's going on, everybody? My name is Cody, and again, this is the third attempt at making this video short because each time was about 15 to 30 minutes long, and I'm getting a little bit better. Third time's a charm, right? Alright, so let's get started. This video pertains primarily to NVIDIA cards, and eventually I'll do one for AMD cards because I know much more about NVIDIA because I've been using NVIDIA since the 200 series GTX cards. So basically what we're going to do is I get asked all the time, especially by my coworkers since I work at HP and all that stuff, if this is going to be better than this one, and if this one is better than that one, and all that stuff. And I'm sick and tired of everybody keep asking me that question because I hear it every single day and it's driving me nuts. So we're going to go ahead and knock this stuff out of the way, get everyone up on speed, and get it done once and for all because, you know, customers and all that kind of stuff. Bleh. So we're going to go ahead and speed things along. Yay, 1 minute. Cool. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and only do numbers as in the X's. Alright, so we're going to say X number card, and then whatever that second number is, and if there is a 5, we'll say that's an X as well. So in this case we'll just say 2XX, so 200 and something, or 400 and something, 1000 and something, blah blah blah. So just keep those X's in mind because I'm going to be saying X a lot, and it might sound a little bit dirty after a while because I might say X multiple times. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start from the bottom and then work our way up because there are architecture types that you need to do. There's the tick-tock cycle with generations that we have to calculate, and that one's pretty easy. So we're going to go ahead and, even though I've never seen one, we're going to say the GeForce GTX 100 and 200 series. They are the same architecture. The 300 series was also the same as the 200 series, blah blah blah. I don't really get why the 300 ever existed. It's a mobile platform just like the 800 series was. 800's weird because it's a generation and a half gap. Half of the generation is half of the numbers are 1, and then the other half is in the next generation up. So the 200 series, the 100 to 300 series rather, the 4 and 5 are their own, 6 and 7 are their own, 8 starts with the previous 700 generation, and then it goes into the 900s generation, and then the 10 series or 1000 series followed by whatever the next series is, I think is going to also be Pascal, but we're going to go ahead and figure this out. So the 4 and 500 series being Fermi replaces the 1 through 300 series, whatever those were called. I think they were Tesla. I'm not entirely sure on that. So we're going to go ahead and forget that variable. So in this case, we're going to factor in the second digit of the number. So we're going to go X 10 through 40. Never ever 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 buy a card that is a 10 through 40 level card because they are basically meant to be able to push in just enough graphics power to have more than one display. That's why desktops have those add-in cards that let you have 2, 3, 4 displays. They are for productivity. They're not for gaming or video production or anything that requires graphic power other than just getting the extra screens onto your computer. Excuse me. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and go with the current generations. There's computers out there, special laptops that have the 900 and the 10 series. And this is where things get weird because people are asking if a 1050 is good versus why would we buy a 970 if we can get the 1050 for the same price. I want you to stop right there. The 10 to 40 series is the most absolute basic version of the card and or series. So we rule those out if we're gaming or doing anything other than just needing that extra screen so we can check Facebook over here, watch YouTube over here, do text writing or whatever over here because I have screen 1, 2, and 3 over here. 50 and 60 level cards, especially their TI versions, which you can make this case X, whatever that second number is, and then 5. Just take the TI and make it a 5. So we have the 285, the 295, the 485, even though that doesn't exist. The 465, we'll say that, the 565 or the 555, the 655, the 665, the 7, blah, 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 you get it. So that 55 is the TI, or titanium. It's just a stopgap between the 50 to 60, so on and so forth. Or the 970 Ti is the 70 to 80 jump. So what we're going to do now is we're going to figure out exactly why a higher number card could lose to a lower number card. So a 1050 losing to a 970, why is that? Or the 295 versus a 480 loses, or any of that kind of variable. Now, we're not going to go over VRAM all that much. We're not going to go over CUDA. We're not going to do the flops or the floating point integers, because that's a topic for another day, and it'll take forever to make all of that into one video, and obviously you're looking for a quick answer to a serious question. So basically put, architecture is where that factor kicks in. So if you go 2 generations up, so the Fermi architecture is the 4 and 5. If you go to Maxwell, or Kepler rather, you got the 6 and 7 and low 8s, and then Maxwell is high 8s to 9s, and then Pascal is all 10, and might be what's in the 1100 series or whatever it's going to be called. So a low level jump from generation to the last one, the tick-tock, and then it goes tick again. So a 1050 in theory should be at least as good as a 960 Ti, or even a very low balled 970, but the 970, once it overclocks, will destroy that 1050 or that 1060 because it just has more headroom. It's got more VRAM typically, and it's got all these variables. And to understand VRAM, think of it as a transmission in your car. Transmission has to be at least as good as the engine it's in. It has to be able to handle all the horsepower that your engine can throw out so it can get it to the ground. A 50 level card is an engine with, say, like 200, 300 horsepower, which is a lot for a car, but a 70 level card has like 500, 600 horsepower. Your transmission will still be able to handle that with all the VRAM it has, and each gigabyte of RAM basically can go to this monitor. So if you have 3 gigs of RAM, that's 1 gig for this monitor, 1 gig for this monitor, and 1 gigabyte for this monitor. 4 gigabytes, that's 1 1/3 gig, 1 1/3 gig, 1 1/3 gig, 8 gig straight up, 2.5, 4.5, so 5, and then this one plus something else going on in the background. So VRAM is great, but if your processor chip doesn't have the power to push all the pixels to this, this, and this, that RAM is useless. You're like taking a 100 horsepower engine, throwing it into a transmission that can easily handle thousands of horsepower. So now that we've got that established, we can imagine that VRAM isn't as near as important as the chip that's powering the graphics card is. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and go from the 900 to the 1000 series, because everything before that is really weird, especially the 295 and the 580 and the 690. Those actually had multiple GPUs on the same board, and they acted like the SLI system, even though it really wasn't. It still kind of is, and we're not caring about that right now because it's irrelevant. So a 970 is going to be a 1050, even though the 1050 is a a 950 is a TOC cycle and the 1050 is a tick. So the crunching power of a 70 level card is when you start getting into high performance graphics cards. So you have X70, so X50, 60, those are entry level. The 10 to 40, we don't give a rat's you know what about it. Yeah, effectively. And then the 70 level card, the X70 is gaming level, and then the X80 is high gaming level, and then the X8X, or for TI, which is close to what a Titan level card is like the, I'm gonna make a beautiful thing and there's nothing you can do about it because I'm that good. So, you know, the 80 and the 80 Ti is when a unicorn farts a beautiful rainbow over a sunset, and then bam, you have the most awesome graphics you can possibly get out of that generation card's entire arsenal of graphic power. In the case of a 980 Ti and a 1070 and 1080 and all that stuff, you have 4K resolution capabilities, you have multi-monitor support for that 4K. If it's in the case of a 1080, it could probably handle 2 or 3 graphics screens at once at 4K, even if it's at ultra low settings at 4K. So, long story short, the 1050 loses to a 970, the 970 completely loses to a 1070. In the case of Pascal, a 1080 Ti loses to a 980 Ti loses entirely to a 1070. Which, when I went from 980 Ti to a 1070, my jaw hit the floor with how much of a disadvantage the 980 Ti actually had. I could not fathom how that was possible until I remembered that Pascal is newer than Maxwell, and Maxwell has already been around since the 800 series. So, you know, we had it since like 2015, 2016, and Pascal was 2016, 2017. So, made sense, and so on and so forth. So, at the end of the day, don't worry about the 50 and 60 level cards. Try to get a 70 level card if you can. Even if it's a 670, it's going to be better than a 750 or 760. And then if you go to a 970, it's going to completely curb stomp a 680. And even a 690 with 2 graphics chips in it, it's still going to lose out to a 970. So anyway, guys, that was quick and painless, right? So I thank you guys for watching this video. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you dislike it, hit the dislike button. Get a conversation going in the comments down below. And yeah, so anyway, if you haven't noticed, I'm back in my old base of operations. I know it's weird. I'll explain eventually, maybe. It's a long story. So anyway, guys, that does it for this video. I'll go into VRAM and all that stuff in another video. So anyway, guys, I'm out of here. You guys have a good one. Peace.